All right. Hey, folks. Good morning. Good morning. All right, Cam, you're in for Shane. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
How we doing?
Yeah, we're surviving.
All right. COVID-19 situation. Well, we're going to talk a little bit about that, folks. The overreach that some people feel are going on. But let's do some housekeeping first. You can join the conversation at 508-871-7000. 508-871-7000. Lines are open and available. We also have our text line at 617-297-8388. 617-297-8388. Or you can email me at textjoeintheradio@gmail.com, all one word. It's the same screen. It shows up when, folks. It happens in real time. I know some of you continue message on the messenger on Facebook. Honestly, sometimes I don't catch that because it's just the way the screens are set up, so be aware of that. But I am always looking at the texted line, so feel free to use that when you want. So we are streaming on TuneIn as well. Just punch in WCRN. You can take us anywhere. And we're live streaming on Facebook. So if you go to the Joe Mangiacotti Radio Show, Joe Mangi Show for short, you get the audio and the video as well. And yes, Teddy Goodpup is in studio. I think you can see him in the screen if you want to check it out. All right, Kim. So you're doing good? Everything's fine?
Yep.
All right. Hour two today, being the first Saturday of the month, is Politically Speaking, and that will be with State Senator Michael Moore. So the good senator will be joining us via telephone at 7 o'clock, and I'm sure he'll have some information regarding Massachusetts' extended shutdown to May 18th. It'll be our opportunity to find out how the state is handling this, the good, the bad, the ugly of it all, and your chance to talk to the senator directly as well. You can always call in at 508-871-7000 and talk to Senator Mike Moore between 7 and 8 on the first Saturday of every month for Politically Speaking. All right, but till we get to that point, let's talk about a few things. Obviously, I've got to touch on Joe Biden's situation. He finally broke silence in a way. Look, he had 5 weeks to prepare to go on to Morning Joe and MSNBC the other morning. And let's talk about this. Well, first of all, I don't think he hit it out of the park. I think that he did a solid, nope, nothing, it didn't happen. But there were a few things that really jumped out during that interview. And Mika, by the way, she did a good job. It wasn't totally fluff. All right, she went at him. Did she go at him with everything that she should have? Everything that would have happened if his name was Brett Kavanaugh and he was a conservative? Absolutely not. Joe talked about this, and he said, no, absolutely not. And he was convincing, but there were a couple of things that I was like, excuse me, whoa, what do you mean by that? When he made his comment about, this is 27 years ago. After all this time, this comes up. In an interview, when you're an investigator and you're interviewing somebody and somebody terms it that way, you take it as basically a confession. What do you mean? What is this? This issue comes up? This pre-existing issue, this issue that you knew about? Comes up after 27 years, you thought it was to bed. Just an odd way to phrase it. As an investigator, that was a red flag for me. Now, he did say that all women should be believed, but then they have to prove it, or that it needs to be investigated and the facts have to come out. But he said they have to be believed. So if we do have to believe them, so it's up to you to prove your innocence then, to prove that it didn't happen. I'm not sure if the media has asked this. Look, I hate to use that term. I know I actually got feedback on that. But the point is that during the Kavanaugh inquiry into the allegations there, Brazy Ford, he was asked this many times. President Trump was asked this many, many times. He has not been asked it. I mean, President Trump has officially been asked about it more than Joe Biden has been. Straight out. I think that he has still a lot of explaining to do. The other part of it was he was really dancing around the University of Maryland archives and having that checked out. Plus, we already know that Biden operatives, right? The Daily Caller busted his operatives rummaging around in the files at the University of Maryland. What were they looking to hide or remove from the file? I mean, that's not new. That happened back in the Clinton days. Remember, was it Sandy Berger? They called him Sandy Burglar. Got caught putting the papers down his pants, trying to remove documents from the Clinton files. And he might have opened the door to a couple things because he said that all of the papers for these allegations are filed in the Senate archives, and that he's asked the Secretary of the Senate to turn them over. Doesn't that beg the question, well, who else is in there? What other complaints are on file there? And why should we just rummage around and take a look at Joe Biden's complaints? What about sitting senators? We know from previous stories and revelations that we, the taxpayers, because remember, the government doesn't have a penny that hasn't been collected from us. So we, the taxpayers, have paid out millions of dollars with NDAs for sexual harassment and sexual allegation charges to sitting members of Congress. So I'd like to know a little bit more about what other agreements have there been filed and have been paid off with taxpayer money. And he also said another thing that was interesting about the transcripts and the tapes of him talking with Vladimir Putin. Well, Vladimir and him had conversations. Maybe we should have those transcripts released. Maybe Trump should say, I released a transcript with the head of state. Maybe we should do that. And given the fact that as every day goes by, we know more and more of the left, the Obamas and Clinton, all behind and involved with orchestrating, and their operatives orchestrating the whole Russian collusion hoax, the bull there, the dossier, acting with foreign agents, Clinton Foundation accepting millions of dollars from Russian oligarchs, and then knowing that Barack Obama was aware of Peter Strzok and Linda Page's operation. And then the whole nother thing we'll talk about, we'll get in because we absolutely need to talk about General Flynn and what your take is on that. But before I go to the phone, I want to remind you that there are this whole thing with Tara Reade and Joe Biden is not an isolated incident. You have to remember, first of all, what's his name? I mean, he's Creepy Joe. Why? Because he overtouches, he invades personal space, he sniffs women's neck and hair. But there are a lot of women out there who have raised red flags and filed either from complaints or just has gone on the record. There's Lucy Flores, right? Well, she was the former Nevada lieutenant governor nominee, and she alleged that Biden smelled her hair and gave her a big, slow kiss on the back of the head in a 2014 campaign. Amy Lopos, she was a congressional aide for Jim Himes in 2009. She claimed Biden touched and rubbed her nose against hers during a political fundraiser. DJ Hill, she was one of two women to come forward with allegations in the New York Times about tactile politics is how she termed it. She alleges that Biden rested his hand on her shoulder and started to move it down her back, left her feeling very uncomfortable. Caitlin Caruso, right? She shared a story with the Times report of her sexual assault at the University of Nevada in 2016, where Biden hugged her just a little bit too long. She said it doesn't even really cross your mind that such a person would dare perpetuate harm like that. These are supposed to be people you can trust. And if we were to apply the standards that the Obama administration was applying to college students, young college men, Joe Biden would have been kicked out of school by now and removed from the campus based on what's already happened. Sophie Koreski, back in 2016. Right? So she was photographed holding hands and touching foreheads with Biden at the Oscars, where she stood alongside about 50 other sexually assaulted survivors during Lady Gaga's performance. And it was at this moment that went viral. And it was described then by the Post as powerful. But Koreski says she believes that Biden violated her space, her personal space. And then she told the Post that she wasn't impressed with Biden's 2-minute-long video response to the growing unwanted touching allegations against him, in which he never says he's sorry. He didn't take ownership in the way that he needs to do. The list continues on that. What say you? 508-871-7000. Rich in New Hampshire. Good morning, sir. Thanks for holding.
Morning. How you doing?
I am well, Richard, given the quarantining and not being able to socialize outside of your living room and all of that goes with it. But, hey, we're all in this together.
Oh, yeah. But I'm going to tell you something here that's going to tick you off, and it's going to tick off all the listeners here. All right? About a couple weeks ago, I told you about the Center for Disease Control, that they were a private corporation, for money, making money. And what it is, basically, they have the Ebola virus. They have the patent on that. And then you have the Rockefeller Foundation. They have the patent on, whatever. But anyways, they get a patent on that. I just drew a blank, That's what it is, Joe, when you get 73. But anyways, the one who has a patent out now on this coronavirus, this is going to blow your mind, all right? Bill Gates' wife has a patent on this. I don't know if you knew that.
Yeah, I did know that. I know that Bill Gates does have it. And look, Bill Gates and a couple other people would like to forcibly vaccinate the world and make trillions of dollars off of this.
Exactly.
And it makes me wonder what it is going on there, because was not Bill Gates the huge computer nerd, geek, whatever? I mean, he's not
even get
doctor.
The virus on his computer software.
There you go. Right.
That's what we're going to be relying on. Some a-hole like him.
Right.
Right.
Handle the virus on your own computers before you worry about the world, buddy.
There you go. But the thing is, right? A lot of people don't understand. He's vaccinating a lot of people over there in Africa. All right. And what's happening is a lot of the girls over there, the women, they're becoming sterilized. I'm sure you've heard of that. You can back check that if you want.
No, I have heard this before about that. And then there is, you get into this and technically, I guess we got to call them conspiracy theories because there hasn't been accepted as fact yet, but it has to do with the whole New World Order, population control. And, this has been, and this is brought up with the coronavirus. People have said, well, is this tied into, again, population control? But I think you have to look at China, how China's been handling it. And even if this was a complete accident, right, apparently it's been determined, and I think Trump is accepting that it was not, the coronavirus or COVID-19 was not, in fact, man-made. However, how did it get out? And if it truly got out, got out by accident, The
But the other thing is,
CCP
Joe,
has absolutely used the situation, right?
Right.
Look at what they have done in Africa. What they're doing around the world is they're leveraging their help and aid to these underdeveloped and underfunded and just under-teched countries. To save their people, they have to give up mining rights and other things to get help from
exactly.
China.
That's what they're doing. That's what they're doing in Africa now. But
Yeah.
the thing is, too, I mean, all these viruses, I mean, stop and think about this. They either come out of Africa or they come out of China, all right? Is that by design? But the thing that we have
Rich, stop from that for a second, because it is by design, because those are places that don't have the kind of regulation or even security that we have here. Or in patent laws and research laws and FDA and all that. I mean, why is research done in some of the countries that they're done? It's because they can get away with it, and this includes human experimentation.
But the thing that we have to understand here, none of these viruses and stuff ever come out of Manchester, New Hampshire, or Boston, Massachusetts. They always come out of there. But the thing is, too, all these other viruses, right? What you have to understand, people. All these viruses, SARS, MERS, I don't care, M1, N1, H1, they all have patents. Somebody's making money, follow the money, and that's why we have all these viruses, Joe, And the thing is, what we have to understand, Bill Gates' father, he was on the board of directors for Planned Parenthood. And everybody knows about Margaret Sanger. Margaret Sanger came out and said that blacks are like weeds. They have to be exterminated. Yeah. And not only that, but his father was with eugenics. Are you familiar with eugenics?
I've heard of the name, but let's go back to Margaret Sanger for a second, because, somebody like Candace Owen is out there, and she's doing a good job about pointing out to the African-American population the entire bull and the lies that they've been fed for decades now by the Democratic Party. And it's amazing that how many young black males and females don't understand the history of Planned Parenthood and Margaret Sanger, and why Planned Parenthoods are in very densely populated urban areas among the black community.
There you go, exactly.
And they don't understand that it was absolutely created to wipe them out, to stop little black children from being born.
Exactly. That's what it was all about. And the thing, eugenics, what people don't understand about eugenics, what they've done, this goes all the way back into the early 20s, okay? The guy who started it, his name was Davenport. I don't remember his first name, but his last name was Davenport. And basically what it was to find some virus, all right? In other words, you're Irish, right? So they wanted to go to the DNA for the Irish. They could wipe out. With the virus, they could wipe out all the Irish. They could wipe out all the Italians. And they get some of those viruses out there now, Joe. People, you have to understand that.
Yeah.
I mean, the this virus that's out there right now is not as, lethal as the stuff that they really have out there if they want to get rid of Italians or French people. Or
I don't know if everybody caught what we're talking about, but eugenics is how they arrange reproduction within the human population, folks. And it's to increase the occurrence of characteristics that you would, desire. But at the same time, you can also eliminate characteristics.
Exactly. That's the key word there, Joe. Eliminate.
And,
they can eliminate.
And it's really nothing. It's really nothing short of what the Nazis were attempting to do. I mean, you just remind me of something. Okay, when they came out and they asked Hitler, why do you want to get rid of the Jews? He says, well, first of all, he says, I'm doing what the Americans are doing. The Americans started this eugenics, and they want to get rid of a lot of people. So that was Hitler's excuse. He said he came out and he said it was the Americans who started with this eugenics to get rid of people. How's that for an answer? Yeah. Crazy.
Well, look. All right, I'm just telling you, people, you got to be aware. I mean, when these viruses come out, somebody's making money on them, and it's not going to be you and me.
Right.
All right, I'll let you go because I'm sure you have other callers, Joe.
All right, man. Thanks.
All right,
All right, folks, 508-871-7000. Lines are open and available. What say you in the Biden situation? If you saw Joe Biden's interview on Morning Joe on MSNBC the other morning, Did he do a good job? And should this be it? Is it just simply accusation made, he denies it never happened, although there were some questionable answers in the way he denied it, and we leave it alone? He denied it, that's the end of it. That didn't happen with Blasey Ford at all in the Brett Kavanaugh situation. There was unbelievable interviews, investigation, accusations, and she had nothing. Tara Reade's case, and the talking heads from the Democratic strategists on the talking shows yesterday were trying to imply that there were holes in Tara Reade's accusations. But she had, just off the bat, if we're going to compare, and what we're comparing is not the acts involved. What I'm upset about, as usual, is the media coverage, is the bias and the bias in the coverage of the media, that there is no unbiased fact reporting done, and that is absolutely is handled depending on your political affiliations. And Blasey Ford had nothing compared to Tara Reade. Tara Reade is saying the date, who was there, she talked to her mother about it, her brother about it. The mother called into Larry King, folks. Called into Larry King's show. He was big then, back in 93. And CNN called in and talked about and said, yes, my daughter was violated by a member of Congress, a senator, but she didn't go to the police out of respect for him. That's an odd thing right there to me. I mean, do you hold respect for somebody that violated you? But she was clearly intimidated. So and she filed with the Senate. So that means that document has to exist. And if it doesn't, then something's up there. And we're going to talk a little bit more about documents disappearing and cover-ups and investigations, because we're going to talk about Lieutenant General Flynn when I come back from then up until 7 o'clock, because we've been saying this for the media, certain members of the media, obviously more of the conservative talk show hosts and conservative writers and so forth, and of course the GOP, about Flynn being absolutely railroaded. And we're going to talk about the timeline on that a little bit and just how disgusting that whole situation has been. So coming up at 7 a.m. will be Politically Speaking with State Senator Mike Moore. Tomorrow morning from 6 to 7, it's the latest Cameo Media production, and that's Faith in America with Reverend Peter Preble. And I'll be in from 7 to 8 for the Joe Mangiacotti Show there. Be sure also to check out our website at joemangishow.com, and you can get there from TJM Show.com as well. We obviously have all past shows and podcasts, but also during the week we do contribute a little more. And I actually joined Jerry Doherty on Making Money Last every Thursday from 11 to noon. He calls it Political Thursdays. I want to remind you to not only tune into Jerry every weekday because of incredible financial planning and retirement advice, but because Political Thursdays are a fantastic show and really is kind of a must listen to. But it's time now to take a quick break for Out with Joe, and we'll be back on the other side. This is brought to us by Nothing Bundt Cakes in White City Plaza in Shrewsbury. I'm Joe Mangiacotti. Stick with us.
We're going to lunch. lunch? We're going to lunch? This is Out with Joe. With Joe Mangiacotti.
Actually, honey, we're going to lunch.
Restaurants.
You can get anything you want at Alice's restaurant.
Food and drink.
And when their ham and eggs need savor, coffee, ketchup gives them flavor.
Entertainment.
I like to have a little something going every day. Maybe nothing big, but a little daily recreation don't hurt me.
Have some bacon on a biscuit and let's go.
Now, it's time to go Out with Joe.
Welcome to this edition of Out with Joe, brought to you by Nothing Bun Cakes in White City Plaza in Shrewsbury. I'm Joe Mangiacotti, and this week we thought we'd take a break from the negative restaurant news during this time of quarantining and share some fun eating out trivia. Almost half of Americans say they eat most meals away from home or on the go. It's estimated that 25% of our food budget was spent eating out in 1990, and today we spend about 40% of our food budget eating out. Almost 25% of restaurant meals were ordered from the car in 2008, and an American typically takes 14 minutes to eat a meal at McDonald's, while Frenchman lingers for about 22 minutes. According to the National Restaurant Association, America spent 44% of their food dollars outside the home in 1996, up from 25% in 1955. The average U.S. household spent about $975 per person eating food outside the home. 25% of all retail establishments in the U.S. are for eating or drinking. There are more than 650,000 restaurants in the U.S. The most popular day to eat out in the U.S. is Saturday. Second is Friday. Third is Sunday. Monday is the slowest day for restaurants. Americans eat almost 30% of their meals away from home each year. We are continuing to forego the Music Minute while quarantine is still in effect. For more on dining and entertainment, click out outwithjoe.com and follow us on social media at Out With Joe. Out With Joe has been brought to you by Nothing Bundt Cakes in White City Plaza in Shrewsbury, on Facebook at Nothing Bundt Cakes Shrewsbury.
The preceding program has been a production of Cameo Productions.
Have you heard of the hottest new bakery around? I know you heard about it right here. My friend Al has opened Nothing Bundt Cake in the White City Plaza in Shrewsbury. Nothing Bundt Cake is a bakery chain and is locally owned and operated by my friend Al. They have bundt cakes ranging from bite-sized to tiered, plus platters, candles, and cards. For any occasion, function, or just to have around the house or office, stop by and check them out. Everything is baked from scratch and on site. Nothing beats a sweet surprise. And until you try one of Al's bundt cakes, you haven't tried a real bundt cake. Stop by and ask for Al. Tell him Joe told you to stop by. 98 Boston Turnpike, White City Plaza near Planet Fitness, Shrewsbury, and on Facebook as well, Nothing Bundt Cake Shrewsbury.
This is the Joe Mangiacotti Show. We are the show you want to know. It's time to talk to Joe.
All right, folks, welcome back to the second half of the first hour of the Joe Mangiacotti Show. Hour 2 at 7 o'clock. Senator Mike Moore joins us for Politically Speaking from 7 until 8. Lines open and available, 508-871-7000. 508-871-7000. You can text us in real time at the text line 617-297-8388. Michael Flynn. Lieutenant General Michael Flynn. The man's life has been turned upside down. He's been bankrupted. He had to sell his house for legal fees. Lawyers for Michael Flynn released internal FBI emails this week. Absolutely devastating stuff for the case. The documents were made public Wednesday evening as Flynn seeks to withdraw the guilty plea. And the guilty plea is for lying to the FBI. It makes broad assertions of law enforcement misconduct. U.S. District Judge Emmet Sullivan has rejected many of the defense arguments, but has yet to rule on whether Flynn can take back his guilty plea. In the face of what has been revealed, and this is not conspiracy theories, it is not assumptions, it is fact. So these reports, they're released. And there's handwritten notes in the margins of these reports. But let's set this up. Trump's elected president blows the left away. Literal shock. Think back to that night, election night 2016. The crying, the tears, the people on the literally on the verge of, I'm not being facetious, on the verge of suicide over this. He wasn't supposed to be elected. Remember, we didn't know at the time, but Stroke and Linda Page were talking about 1,000,000 to 1 it wasn't going to happen in insurance policies in place. So now you've got a guy coming into the White House, no experience in politics, whatever, a lot of confusion, transition team. Comey admitted on camera that he took advantage of the confusion in basically, look, the Trump administration is neophyte. They have no experience. He has no experience. And some people that are sprinkled in there, but anybody sprinkled in there from the Obama-Clinton era are actually working against him. And Comey says he violates protocol. And he says, what the heck? He sends a couple agents over to the White House for going the process which should happen. Official request goes through White House counsel, and the meeting takes place. They absolutely went there under false pretenses. General Flynn, a 30-plus year veteran of armed services, highly decorated, man that was beyond reproach, beyond question prior to endorsing Trump. Remember, he was one of the first people to come out in favor of Trump. And they send a couple agents over to talk to him 4 days into the transition. And in the margins, I got it right here, quotes, in the margins, they find things written. If we're playing games, WH will be furious. White House. And the agent writes, what is our goal? Truth or admission to get him to lie. Listen to that, to get him to lie. So we can prosecute him or get him fired. Look, this is the Department of Justice. It's not the Department of get you to lie. It's not the Department of get you fired. It's not the role of the FBI. And those agents come away and they're convinced that he was telling the truth. They have no indication and no reason to believe he's lying about anything. And what they're going after him is for conversations he had as the incoming national security advisor, which is kind of his job description. So the agents come back and they report to the FBI. They don't think he's lying. He's not hiding anything. He is very personable and truthful and nothing there. But it's not closed. Stoke orders the investigation to stay open. And Comey's involved in this. And agents have said this is outside of the normal purview of what would have happened. And they decide that they're going after him. Now, you might say, well, why are they going after Lieutenant General Flynn so hard? Just because he supports Trump? A lot of people support Trump. Just because he's going to be the NSA director? Just because they were going after all the fringes of the Trump sphere? There was more to it, because General Flynn had big plans for the intelligence agencies of the United States, and it was known that he had plans to revamp 16 agencies. He had plans to streamline things, and they knew that business as usual was going to change. There might be consolidations. They were going to be told to play nice in the sandbox. Remember, one of the biggest issues with 9/11 was the lack of communication between intelligence agencies, and that includes the FBI as well as the CIA, the NSA, all of the agencies. And that was supposed to change, and it did initially, but it's kind of gone back to the old schools. There's a movie out there, not a movie, but a series, I think, it's Leaning Towers, and it looks at leading up to 9/11. Check it out if you can. I know you're all binging these days, but it does touch on the lack of communication. And not only the lack of communication, but the rivalry between these agencies, that they don't want to share not just information, but any glory in the apprehension of terrorists, believe it or not. So Flynn had big plans for intelligence agencies. And one could argue the point that this might have been a couple birds with a stone here, because they think they're going to damage Trump's administration. They certainly would take an advantage of the transition confusion, the ignorance of members of this incoming administration. I don't mean in a bad way, just the lack of knowledge of how things work. And if they could knock him out, there'd be nobody trying to rearrange the chess pieces on the intelligence board, right? And we know a lot of the attitude going on. And again, I got to stress this. There are some really bad apples in the cart here, not just in the FBI, but in the DOJ as well. But that should not impugn the thousands of federal agents who are not these pieces of scum that we're talking about. There are thousands of agents who are patriotic, who are abiding, and they're really there to protect and to serve and to do a good job for the American people. But unfortunately, some key people in very high places have tarnished the FBI in ways that J. Edgar Hoover could never have accomplished. And it needs to be cleaned up. On Thursday's Making Money Last and Jerry Doherty's show, I even suggested that, first of all, Flynn, because there's talk, of course, right, about, well, the president just pardoned him. And he's perfectly justified doing that, because one of the reasons that our founding fathers put the power of pardon into the Constitution was in the event that there was something that was so egregious and so wrong that it could be righted. Because they knew. They experienced governors and sheriffs. And remember, back in those days, sheriffs were actually a very big position in the colonies that people were railroaded. And that's why they put it there. So Trump has enough on just these documents that were released that this whole trial should have never even gone to trial. And before I go into that, I want to remind you that when they went back to Flynn, and you're going to say, well, if he didn't do anything wrong, why did he admit to all this? I got to remind you why and point out why. Because his son, who just had a baby and works with him, they were going to go after his son. And they're going to go after him under the Logan Act, which no one has ever been charged with, including John Kerry and others. Ted Kennedy, for one. But the point is, a father, and like any good father, was going to protect his son and the father of his grandson, and he was going to fall on his sword even though it wasn't his sword to fall on. And that's why he did it. But I'm saying that they should right now, President Trump should let this go through the courts. I know it's tough on him, but be vindicated legally through the courts, Trump's fingerprints off of it. And once it's all said and done, two things should happen. One is Lieutenant General Flynn should civilly sue the pants off of everybody and make these agents pay and the government pay for malicious prosecution and false imprisonment and everything that he can go after, and get back I think the price tag they put on him so far is $6 million in legal fees. It's wiped him out. To get back 10 times that $6 million. And then once it's all done, the president, in my opinion, should pardon him then, because remember, the arrests are still on the record. Even if they decide not to prosecute on a retrial or it's thrown out, that's fine. But there's still that record. But he should pardon him. And then I wouldn't mind seeing the president either appoint him director of the FBI or bring him back in some capacity to do what he wanted to do in the very first place, and that was to clean house and reorganize the situation. And just remember that none of this stuff either would not be coming to light if A.G. Barr wasn't there. And I know that some people don't have a lot of faith in him. I'm still holding on, and he has put these guys in place to look into this, and Barr doesn't come off. He's not a name seeker, glory seeker. He's the guy who's just going to get the stuff done. Remember how President Trump would talk about the text between Strzok and Linda Page? The way he would say, lovers. Oh, the lovers. Oh, Linda, I love you so much. I mean, when Trump does that, I'm sorry, that's pretty funny stuff, the way the POTUS says that. But this was just an abuse of power. They told Flynn he didn't need an attorney. Right there, that's a Miranda violation. If they're there for an investigation and they're going after him and they not only tell him he doesn't need a lawyer, they don't read him his rights, total. On that alone, it's got to be thrown out. And they go after this guy 4 days into the transition. And here's Comey saying on camera, that's something he never would have done during the Obama or the Bush administrations. He never would have taken advantage of the confusion. He would have done it right and correctly. Comey is such a piece. Such a piece. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Let's go to Mark, who's been waiting. Sorry, Mark. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. I was an enlisted man. You don't have to call me, sir.
You worked for a living.
I was an enlisted man, so you don't have to call me, sir.
Right. I said you worked for a living.
That's right.
Yeah.
So anyways, I wasn't going to call, but I had to run this by you.
Sure.
As an idea. What do you say we go to the People's Republic of China and say on to them, you know, we conducted an investigation and we came to the conclusion, we're talking about the U.S. government, we came to the conclusion that because of your criminal negligence, we also understand that we're in hawk queue for about the tune of $1.5 trillion. So guess what? We've come to conclusion that due to your criminal negligence, you have cost the U.S. Treasury year to date approximately, guess what? $1.5 trillion. Guess what? You ain't getting a plug nickel. Have a nice life. What do you think of that idea?
Well, it's been floated around, Mark, and it's certainly something.
Have a good one, sir.
Thank you. And it's certainly something, and Mark's always a great question and great observation, certainly something that we probably have some fun with. I don't think we could do that. However, there is absolutely merit and credit in saying that China needs to answer for the negligence. Let's even take intent off the table. But there is entire law based around criminal negligence. And it's not hard to prove it, right? Because they knew what was going on. They lied about what was going on. They had officials in investigating. They lied to the world and said no. Yet, let's not forget, I think last week I told you about the Chinese journalist who was able to get some YouTube footage out on his little show, and all of a sudden he disappeared for a while. Right, and then he was re-released, and he apologized and all that. However, he was able and managed to get video of Chinese police, or not normal police, but their version of secret police, in Wuhan, Wuhan rather, checking things out and investigating when they were trying to tell us they had no idea. I mean, they just lied. They're caught lie after lie after lie. Then they restricted the travel within China to control the outbreak, but they allowed and encouraged and protested against restricting travel outside of China. They encouraged it, they let it happen, and they raised a stink when President Trump put a ban on it. So, Mark, to answer your question, there's absolutely evidence against criminal negligence, and I said that early in the show. Let's call it not man-made. How did it get out? Was it purposely released? Was it an accident? Two different paths. If it was an accident, that is criminal negligence in how they handled it, and they lied about everything. Now they've turned around and they're playing this narrative, and they're leveraging the money they're owed and life-saving medicine. Remember they came out of the Retosphere, right? That drug, which has helped. I watched a video of a man the other day on one of the talk shows who was on the deathbed, and they gave him Retosphere, and he almost immediately started to get better. And now he's home and recovered. And China tried to say it was no good, it was nothing, while simultaneously trying to patent it. Because if it was so bad, why are you trying to patent it and get control of it? Now they're leveraging life-saving treatments with some of these African nations to strip them of their mineral and mining rights. I don't know. What do you call that? If you're standing over a dying man with the antidote to the poison, and you only give them the antidote to the poison if they give you something in return, what would you call that? 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. I'll go to the phones, but we'll still continue to talk a little bit about the Flynn situation before we go to politically speaking at 7 o'clock, because, you know, Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan, he's been very vocal about this. He talks about the FISA as a member of Congress. Look at, again, before I go to the phones real quick, you know, they took a random sampling of 29 FISA applications where the warrants were actually granted. And did you know that they found something wrong with every one of the 29 random warrants they looked at? And 4 out of those did not have what they call the Woods file. So they didn't have the corresponding Woods file, and I'm saying WOODS, Woods file. Now that's the file that has the original evidence presented and used to obtain the warrant. So you've got the file of the investigation, and within the file there's the Woods file, and the Woods file is actually what they go in front of the panel at the FISA court and they say, Your Honors, this is why you need to grant us special permission to spy on American citizens. And don't forget that it was candidate for president Trump was one of those people. So those files, that is the entire premise of the reasoning for asking to violate constitutional rights, is gone. They're not even there. So think about that. Like Kellyanne Conway says over and over again, and I'm saying it too, and you can't say it enough, what went on here and what happened to a billionaire, a presidential candidate, president-elect, and then president, as well as national security advisor, and all those people surrounding Trump, if it can happen to them, what do you think they could do to you or me, who can't afford 30 lawyers at $750 an hour each, and the connections and the notoriety and visibility? Think about that. It should be bone-chilling to every citizen what went on with that. 508-871-7000. Let me go to the phones. Gene, thank you for holding. Good morning, Gene.
You know something, Joe? If I didn't get on, what you're saying and methodically telling us and interjecting things that you just thought of something, a few minutes ago, Joe, this is like education to the nth. And the callers, the men of WCRN, Radio Free America. Do you understand, everybody? Joe, it's desperately needed for what we're up against. And all of the people that think they're safe with the cult. You know, one of the things, Joe, that we have to listen out for is this speaking that they're doing, this stinking arrogance that they are. They're shameful. And this is why they had to get rid of God, that they can't stand that inflection of a God who sees your evil, because you're not going to get away with it, big boys. However, money is such an aphrodisiac, Joe, that you think you're going to get away with it. Okay? In other words, they are...
But, Gene, do you think that, money, it doesn't seem like money's a problem with any of these people, right? Because they're throwing it around left and right. Millions upon millions of dollars have been floating into the Clinton Foundation. It's the power.
Amen.
It seems to be the power that's the flux. Because we're looking at what went on with General Flynn right there, as I outlined earlier. He had intentions coming in as the NSA director to redo these intelligence agencies. And that was very scary to members of the community, the intelligence community, because it was going to change power structures. They weren't sure how things were going to fall out and where they were going to end up. So it was a very scary time for them. And a preemptive strike, I think, had to be part of the motivation, other than it being, of course, taking out one of Trump's main operatives.
Well, Joe, look at this man, and Joe, I'm going to ask you something. If my sister and I were talking about this, and if you could find out where we could reach him, because I seriously...
Reach who? Flynn?
Yes, I'm a dink, all right? I'm a dink. But I want to say, General Flynn, we will start anything for you we gotta tell this guy how much he is appreciated, how he put his life on the line for America, how he sees clearly, and why they wanted to get rid of him. Then I'll tell him also, Joe, of which I've wanted everyone to know, they went after me in a church for the false teaching. That's how, if they're in a church, Joe, and I know what's going on, and I'm asking questions, and they have to go after me for asking questions, because Gene Giro of 611 Franklin Street.
Gene, don't give the address out, please. I always ask you, please don't give the address out. But Gene, I got to break here because I got to go to Keith from New England for Trump Stores real quick before we're going to wrap up hour one of the Joe Mangiacotti Show. Good morning, Keith.
Good morning, Joe. How you doing?
I'm fantastic. How are things at New England for Trump Stores? Obviously, the stores are still closed down, but you're still doing the online thing, right?
Absolutely, yeah. People are calling all the time. They want to get out, and there's different like rallies and things like that going on. I guess there's something going on in Boston this coming Monday. People are asking to buy flags and stuff.
Now, are these rallies to get back to work, or just rallies for freedom, or what are the rallies' purposes?
I think it's a combination. Get back to work, freedom, and a good majority of them are Trump supporters as well. Got it.
So tell us about New England for Trump Stores. The 5 locations are actually closed, or do you actually have people in there handling orders, or what are you doing? What's the situation?
So, like I think I said the last time, we opened up any Rapid Health. We're selling the masks, gloves, and sanitizers and stuff. So in the Bellingham store, we have a little tent kind of in front of it. So if people come up, we'll kind of let one person in at a time if they want to take a look in the store. So we've got Bellingham going now. We've got Easton, and we've just opened.
Tell us real quick where to go online before we get a break.
AnyForTrump.com. AnyForTrump.com.
Any for Trump and on Facebook as well. Thank you, Keith Lambert from New England for Trump. We'll be back with Senator Mike Moore for Politically Speaking.
and WCRN Worcester. Special report, coronavirus update. I'm Christopher Cruz. States around the country are trying to get back to normal, but it won't be the same as it was before the coronavirus changed our lives, says correspondent Allison Cussick this morning.
As we turn the calendar from April to May, we are seeing at least 30 states lift some of their restrictions and partially reopen. And if you look at the way some states are doing it, everybody really doing it very differently. You know, from Idaho to Illinois, from Arkansas to Alabama. But there is one constant with all of these openings, with the warning, of course, to keep socially distant.
A nursing home in New York City says almost 100 of its residents have died from confirmed or suspected cases of the coronavirus. The count now worldwide, the virus has infected more than 3.3 million people and killed at least 239,000. In the U.S., more than 1.1 million people have been infected and at least 65,000 have died. I'm Christopher Cruz. Restaurants, bars, and other businesses reopened yesterday in tiny Modoc County in far northeastern California. They defied Governor Gavin Newsom's stay-at-home order. They're relying on guidance from local officials like the sheriff, they say. Dozens of states will be partially reopened by May 10th. A police helicopter in Houston has crashed near a clubhouse at an apartment complex this morning. Police Chief Art Acevedo says the cause is unknown and the two who are on board are in critical condition.
Pilot and the co-pilot were trapped in the wreckage for an extended period of time. HFD, Houston Fire Department assets responded to the scene and worked feverishly to extricate and cut the pilots out. They literally had to cut the pilots out of the wreckage.
The chopper was spinning out of control before it crashed at around 2 a.m. local time. No one on the ground was hurt. I'm Christopher Cruz.
Are you paying too much for term life insurance? There's a tremendous price war among the major term life companies. Rates have dropped dramatically in the past few years. For example, a man age 45 non-tobacco user, $1 million of coverage, $75 per month level rate for the next 10 years. Or a man age 50 non-tobacco can obtain $500,000 of coverage for a monthly premium of only $110 per month, guaranteed not to change for the next 20 years. That's right, level rate guaranteed not to change for the next 20 years. If you're a smoker, we have great rates available for you as well. At Termbusters, we specialize in policies of $500,000 and above. If you're looking for new or replacement term life insurance, call today for a quote at 1-800-569-5440. That's 1-800-569-5440. You're probably paying more than you should. Call Termbusters, 1-800-569-5440, or visit our website at termbusters.net. Remember, 1-800-569-5440. Rates and availability may vary by state. Sample rate quotes based on preferred non-tobacco underwriting. Exam required.
7 o'clock.
I'm Reverend Peter Preble, host of Faith in America on WCRN 830 AM. On Faith in America, we hold conversations at the crossroads of faith and society. Faith in America, Sunday mornings at 6 a.m., right here on WCRN.
I want to tell you what Cantiani Insurance has been able to do for me and Teddy. We stopped in to see Paul Sr. and the great staff at 318 Plantation Street. They've been handling my car and business insurance for years. Teddy was making his way around the office, and they let me know. They now offer pet insurance. For a fraction of what one visit to the vet was for Teddy, they could cover him for a whole year. I know you treat your furry family members like any other family member, and as well as I do Teddy. The professional staff at Cantiani has been providing courteous service for over 40 years with integrity and personalized service, making sure that your insurance actually protects you and your family. With 2 locations, the 318 Plantation Street in Worcester and East Douglas Insurance Agency, located at 306 Main Street in Douglas. For home, auto, business insurance, and now pet insurance, click CantianiAgency.com or call 508-791-2088. 508-791-2088.
So are you tired of being tired? Well, then it's time to get the tea. Hey, it's Lisa here to tell you about this all-natural, all-organic tea I've been drinking that has had great results for over 20 years. It's called Life Change Tea, and it's specially formulated to help detoxify and cleanse your kidneys, liver, colon, and blood all at once. The colon is one of the most ignored organs in the human body. The faster that waste is eliminated from the body, the less time that waste sits in our intestines intestines, spreading toxins to our bloodstream. This tea helps cleanse chemicals caused by outside intruders from our entire digestive system. And get this, weight loss can be a side effect. And with continued use of the tea, you can experience clearer, healthier, younger-looking skin, increased energy, and a happier outlook on life. So if you're tired of being tired, get the Life Change Tea at getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. And like me, you'll be glad you did.
It's a corner of America with cozy harbor towns. It's salty air, wicker chairs, and a surf that pounds. The spirit of Massachusetts is the spirit of America. The spirit of the red, white, and blue. The spirit of Massachusetts is the spirit of America. The spirit that we want to share with you.
That's it. We dropped it. All right.
That's all I got. That's all I got for the one I
All
clicked
right,
on.
there's more to it. Well, good morning and welcome to Politically Speaking with Senator Mike Moore. Good morning, Senator.
Morning, Joe. How are you doing?
Fantastic. How are you holding out in the quarantining and the isolation?
Mike, I'm sure like everyone else, it's difficult at times. You want to get out there and meet with people, and then pretty much all my interactions right now are through these Zoom apps and virtual conferences. So,
Well, I'm sure you're like the rest of us and have done more Zoom or online meetings in the last 3 months than you have in your entire life leading up to this.
I never would have thought that I would be utilizing it as much as I am.
Do you think that's going to change things, Senator? Do you think that after we come out of this, we get through this, and we've likened it on this show and on Making Money Last, we likened it to, driving along at 70 miles an hour and you hit a construction site and you go down to basically crawling and maybe even come to a full stop for a second, navigate through the construction site, but once you get to the other side, you just rev right back up to 70 miles an hour. So we'll get through this and we'll rev back up and we'll get back to normal. But do you think that we're going to see changes permanent that stick with us, like maybe handshaking and hugging socially when greeting people go away? Businesses increase the number of Zoom meetings instead of in-person meetings. We cut down on the business travel, and maybe even do more remote learning and remote working, that businesses realize, hey, productivity can stay the same or even get better. I had a couple of weeks ago, I had Deb Drew on, and she had actually done her thesis for her MBA on working from home. And she explained it was more of a cultural than it was just, here's a laptop, go work from home. And that in the thesis, she found that the action, an 8-hour work week or work day rather, that the actual productivity in a typical office is just under 4 hours of actual work. Pretty amazing to learn that, huh?
Yes, 4 hours.
Yeah, I was like, really? Said, yeah. When you take away, when the study was, you look at this and you're taking away coffee breaks, cigarette breaks, the lunch, the gossip, the redundant meetings, and everything that goes with an office environment, the actual work that a typical employee does is about 4 hours.
That's interesting. I never heard that study.
I didn't hear this until it was shared on the show. Like I said, this she did her master's, right, on her MBA on this, and that it's a cultural thing. So do you think that if businesses could continue to get that product, so let's just never mind the 4 hours or 8 hours, if businesses say, well, we did something which we normally wouldn't have done, and we had everybody work from home, but guess what? Our productivity stayed the same or even was better. Would they start looking at cutting down on the brick and mortar and the heavy, expensive commercial space and say, maybe we embrace this a little bit?
Well, I think it may. It's interesting because before this all happened, part of some transportation initiatives that the legislature and the Baker administration had been looking at was to try to provide some incentives for businesses to start allowing people to work at home.
Really?
Yeah, online.
Huh.
Because, years ago when the opportunity for it first came about, businesses were talking about doing it, And then it's just, I guess, culturally, like he's saying, you're saying, it just never, it didn't really, it took hold for a little while, then it kind of just waned off. I think we are going to see it to a certain degree stay here, because just like you're saying, I do find that you have more access to people too. The 8-hour workday or the availability, I think people that are online having these working from home are more likely to, if they get an email or get something after the normal business hours, make themselves more available to it, because they just have it at home and they haven't had to leave the house. There's more access to it, to the computer and what's going on at work.
Well, I think,
and obviously there's some other great benefits to this too. Is the obviously this is to the degree that it hurts the economy, but one reason we were looking at this was trying to reduce traffic congestion. The amount of money that we're having to spend on the roads, expanding the roadways and maintaining them to provide for more traffic.
Oh yeah. Hey, there's been a couple of days I've been during this 3-4 week period. I've gone out and it was eerie. I mean, it was middle of the day of a weekday and have basically no traffic or people walking on the street. It was like a scene from a movie. The apocalyptic type movie. It was kind of eerie. I don't know if you've experienced that. But then Thursday, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was going to say I have.
Oh yeah. Well, Thursday I was coming in here to do money, making money last with Jerry Doherty, and there was a lot of traffic. Of course, it wasn't a lot of traffic, Mike, but it seemed like a lot of traffic after 4 weeks of nobody around. And the thing I noticed, I'm like, man, everybody forgot to drive. Because it was worst drivers on Thursday from Worcester to Westboro. I was like, seriously, folks, you all forgot the common courtesies of driving on the road? But the other thing is, I think that businesses are going to re-examine this whole concept that we went to in the last decade or so of the open workspaces, and they've gotten rid of the cubicles and the dividers. Obviously, I think they're going to look at bringing that back into the scene. But the other part of this whole working from home culture, Senator, is, remember, managers haven't been trained to manage people that way, right? They have come up in how to manage people in a, bullpit, in offices, in workspaces, in meetings, in morning meetings, and that kind of thing. So I think you got to start with that the managers, you have to retrain management on how to manage remotely for it to be effective on any big scale.
Yeah, and actually, you think about it, how you evaluate your employees could change too based on their work product.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Not how they dress.
Not how they dress or how you perceive them. It's going to be based on what they submit for work product. But even again, there's the negative aspect to this, where if you keep people staying at home more, that reduces the amount of impact that they're going to have, the favorable impact that they have on the economy being out there on a daily basis. So, you could have small businesses that people are staying home, so they're not shopping, but they could be shopping online now. If we go to more of a stay-at-home type atmosphere. But if you even look at and I think hopefully you've seen it, some of the climate videos or views that they've had.
Oh, my goodness. Well, I had posted the picture that was floating around of Himalayas and just the air, right, over China, over India, right? They can now see mountain ranges, which they haven't seen for years because the pollution was so thick you couldn't see 30 miles. And I don't mean to bring up a controversial topic, but sure you do.
Come on. For those who deny climate change or maybe not climate change, but at least the impact that we have on the climate in the atmosphere.
Yeah,
I mean, I think this document.
There's no question that there's a big difference to it, and see on the climate change, Senator, I think there's two groups. I mean, there are actually people out there who don't think that there's an impact, which I can't even You can't even have that discussion. But the other climate change issue is the people, and I think I'm more in this boat, is I don't understand how taxing us to death is going to help anything by crippling the United States when India and China are huge polluters and none of it affects them. So that's another discussion. But it's clear. I mean, the other part of this, look at what's happened with gas, right? A few days not driving worldwide, and they had to pay people to take the gas off their hands and store it. I mean, that's $11 a barrel at one point. I mean, it's just that hiccup, which I've always said this before this happened, is every time gas get out of control, we needed to say as a country, we're not going to drive for 48 hours. Watch what happens. What would 2 days of not consuming fuel do? Well, we've seen what it does. It causes this glut and the price drops. But, of course, if the price goes too low, that's going to damage us in the United States, right? Because we've got the fracking and the shale companies that have to have fuel at a certain amount or they go under. Because that's still a fairly new technology, right? So they're very leveraged out on the banks. It's they haven't paid for all of their equipment and infrastructure yet. So they're very mortgaged. They're very much leveraged with the banks. And if gas goes under $30 a barrel and they're not getting enough money to hold it, that's going to be a cascading effect, right? Those fuel companies, energy companies start to go under, and all those banks don't get paid. That's going to be devastating, would it not?
Oh yeah, definitely. And one thing I think those paying attention to the cost of oil and what's going on there. For the longest time, everyone has forgotten, or they think that we're so dependent on foreign oil, but it's been since 2012.
Oh yeah, we've been energy independent.
Yeah,
and
that's one of our largest exports.
And the other thing is, I don't ever want to see fuel get too expensive. Not only because I want to pay $5.99 at the pump, but because Putin, Russia, in essence, what is their only real source of money and power is the oil, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
If the oil when oil was $70, $80 a barrel, Putin was partying because they have so much coming out of there. I mean, that's why he took over Crimea. The only reason he went after Crimea was access to the port, right, and the oil line. Yeah. But when it's at $30, $40 a barrel, it's down for him. The country's revenue goes down, and that's fine with me. Anything that we could Russia, anything that we can China for that matter. But let's bring it a little bit home for a minute, because the governor has extended the stay-home order to May 18th.
Yes. Yep.
And so, what is that meaning for us in general? Are there going to be, or have you guys been discussing? And just as a side, how are you doing? Are you guys having has the Senate done like one big Zoom, or are you guys doing it 10, 12 at a time? I mean, how are you doing? Are you actually communicating with all the other senators? How's that working?
Yeah. Well, right now what we have is once a week we have a caucus. We have a big Zoom meeting, and they will discuss legislation or policies that initiatives that we're looking at doing. So the Democrats will have one, and the Republicans will have one, and then we occasionally will have a joint one, and we'll discuss the legislation that's being talked about, so different initiatives that the Senate President, the Governor, and the Speaker are looking at. And then if there's an issue that people, so then we discuss that. Then we have subgroups, and then the House has subgroups. So there's certain individuals in the Senate that have been made chairs of certain subgroups, right, that within their purview they have like corrections, then they have judiciary, then there's public safety, then there's public health. So there's different.
So you guys are still doing the people's business just using the technology and doing it. Yeah.
But what we're trying to do is, because right now, obviously, we're trying to maintain the social distancing, so we can't go in for the formal session. So we're operating under, we're using what's the informal session, which basically means that if a piece of legislation is going through, all you need is one person to object and the legislation dies. So basically, they're trying to work out between the members, when we have these big groups, they're trying to work out all the policy initiatives that we want in legislation, certain legislation. Like we've had 2 municipal reform bills that have gone through. And then we've had the housing eviction and foreclosure legislation that's gone through. So when that's proposed, they talk about everything that's going to be in there. Then obviously at these meetings, when we have these meetings, if there's objections or things that people want in there, you advocate for it at that point, and then they go back and they try to get a consensus of everyone, and then at that point you either have to look at and this is really, I guess it's a simplified version of how the legislature is supposed to work.
Sure.
But you either decide, okay, look, I'm going to support that legislation. It may not have everything I want, but it's got these other initiatives that I want. So you either make a choice: to let it go through and support it, or you go and object and hold that whole piece of legislation up.
Right. Well, isn't that kind of what you always are dealing with, though, as a legislator, right? Everything that comes up. I mean, how often do you have a piece of legislation or a bill in front of you that's perfect to you?
You're right. But,
there's always right?
But yeah, there is. But right now, it's more. I don't say there's more pressure. There's more. If I want to object to that bill, it's not like going in there and there's 40 senators and you're having an open debate on the issue where you could vote against it, and I'm one of, and you lose 30-10. The legislation doesn't die. This actually gives you a little bit more power that you go there, and especially in this type of environment where we're looking at food insecurity, so money for food, money for health care, that you go in there and you have the power to hold up that whole initiative, which we're operating under a crisis right now. Where before you can go in, if you're in there, you could actually debate things back and forth. And a good part of our work with debating it is I get to look and talk to my colleagues all at once to try to get a feel. If I'm trying to make an amendment, try to propose an amendment, can I get this amendment through? And it's based on how my interaction or how I see my colleague.
I mean, that could literally be a glance, a nod across the aisle, or So that's taken out of this. So it's a little colder, a little more impersonal.
But it also makes it harder for you to. If I think I got something that's important to me, then I'm judging. And I say, hey, I think I can get this through, and it's important. And I think it's an important part that should be part of a bill. But maybe right now I can't make that determination because I'm not seeing my colleagues getting a first-hand interaction with them. You might say, okay, I probably can't get it through right now. But so that social interaction takes away from your ability to make an on-site opinion, whether you think you can push something to the full extent. But we are actually going in this week. We have to go in this week. This is something that they're trying to work out now, is there are certain, by the Constitution, there are certain votes that have to be made by a roll call vote. Now, we have...
Excuse me, Senator, can I just pause there for a second? Because I want to make sure people understand that the rules that you're dealing with, and of course, in federally, of course, when we were set up, and then on the state level, technology we have today wasn't even envisioned. It couldn't have it. So are these laws a little antiquated in the sense that, because I think they say, right, you have to physically be present in the chamber, and it has to have the quorum and all of that. Do you ever see that changing? more on the federal level than the state, maybe because the state's easier to pull all 40 of you in or all 160 reps in. But do you ever see the federal Congress going to the ability to have an online session that carries the full weight of an in-chamber vote?
Well, Joe, I hope it doesn't. I hope they allow it for times of crisis, but
not as a normal.
Not as a normal.
But given certain criteria like we're in, it would carry, I guess you guys would have to set up some kind of defined time that this will work, that if you vote online or electronically, it carries the same full weight and power as a chamber vote.
Yeah, because like I was just saying, if we go to, and let now, again, with the technology we're facing now, that we're utilizing now, not having that social interaction with your other colleagues and being able to strategize and work something through, it really puts more power into the leadership. So, like the Senate president,
and we all know they need more power, right? Because they're all lame ducks.
So this is where I hope it doesn't. But now if at some point technology changes where you can get better interactions, maybe. But again, getting back to now, the state constitution only requires a roll call vote. What we have is we then have rules that both branches have adopted. It's the rules that we can change that require us to actually be there in person.
Mm-hmm.
So we could tomorrow. The only rule right now we have that allows someone to vote outside of being in the Senate chamber, but they require them to be in their office is if you have a medical issue. So say I'm
broke your leg skiing, you can't be mobile. You're
right, but I can get to the office.
Got it.
I can sit up in the office. When they do a roll call vote, they will send a court officer to my office, record my vote, and then walk back down to the chamber. So that's the only thing. But you have to be in the building. So we could technically change the rules, but the problem is what we're concerned about is obviously the transparency of it all. We want people to have faith that we are in fact there. So right now we have a vote coming up. We have to make a vote.
In the court office, it didn't change your vote on the walk down. I don't think the senator should go that way. I'm going the other way on this. That'd be great.
But right now, so we have a vote coming up on a bonding issue next week that we have to. And for this type of vote, the Constitution requires a roll call vote. So basically, what this is, because we allowed what we're voting on next week is because we allowed the extra time or the delay in filing income taxes on the state level to July. We have to borrow the money that would normally come in before the end of the fiscal year. And then when we get the money at the end of July, when people file, we'll be able to pay it off. So
interesting.
Right now
so that's going to end up costing us as a state and taxpayers a little money for carrying of that loan. I got it.
Yeah, but because of the Constitution and because of that legislation. So right now we're looking at the debating, do we have everyone come in and just sit in their office and then then they have the court officer go around collecting the votes?
Mm-hmm.
They're talking about also maybe they'll call everyone's name, you come down to the Senate chamber one at a time, they record your vote. So we're trying to look at different options.
Well, go for that. At least you get to take a walk, Senator, right?
Yeah.
Through the halls.
It'd be nice to get back into the building. For those, the one thing I've heard also people on different media outlets talking about how, the people who said, I wish I could just retire. Now people who are appreciating the fact they had a place to go every day, that they were working, interacting with people.
Oh, and and we're going to have to take a break here in a second, but I mean, there's a serious part of this, which is the depression. I mean, domestic abuse is up, depression's up, drinking is up. There's also some real issues, health issues concerned with this isolation and quarantining. But when we come back on the other side, Senator, let's talk about a few other things. I know there was the Roundtable Food Insecurity conference online that happened. Maybe we can talk about that. Of course, let's recognize some of the first responders and care workers, things like that. So we'll continue with that on the other side.
Sounds good.
All right. Let us take a quick break. We're going to check in with Handling Change, Gary Gay from One Worcester Homes, and we'll be back on the other side of this.
This is Wes Oliver with Prestige Home Mortgage for Handling Change. Join us for Handling Change today at 7:30 or on the web at handlingchange.info.
Good morning and welcome to Handling Change from the Cantiani Insurance Studios. I'm Joe Mangiacardi, and Gary Gay of One Worcester Homes joined us this week. The purchase or sale of your home or investment property could be one of the largest challenges you have, and Gary can help you handle those challenges. Good morning, Gary.
Good morning, Joe. How are you doing today?
Fantastic. How is the real estate business amid the COVID-19? We've just had the governor extend it until May 18th. That's essential, but the real estate business still plugging along, right?
Yeah, Joe, absolutely. The real estate market is still very hot in central Massachusetts. I just recently put in an offer for a client, and we were competing with 7 other offers on a property.
Wow. That's a hot market, man. And of course, right now, with the stay-home order and self-quarantining here, virtual tours and great photography for real estate is so much more important than it was a month ago. And one of those areas is actually the aerial photography or the use of drones. Now, you use drones in your listings, right?
Yeah, I've been a big fan of drones for as soon as I really got into the real estate game about 5 years ago.
Oh, come on, Gary. You just like to play with the drones. They're fantastic toys.
As much as I enjoy playing with drones, I always hire licensed pilots for the drones now who are commercially licensed for aerial photography.
Now, that's important, Gary, that they're licensed so that those photographs can be used commercially?
Exactly. In order to use photos on a listing or for any marketing or commercial purposes, you have to use an FAA pilot for the drone who is licensed to do so.
Well, that's fantastic. How do you use the drone in photographing the property, therefore use it in the marketing? What are the differences that the drone offers that you can't get with normal photography?
One of the biggest challenges we face in the real estate market from a marketing standpoint is how to differentiate yourself, how to differentiate your house and your listing from a similar house next door or, a property in the town over. And I would say this is one of the things that we can do that adds another layer. When you're selling real estate, as in selling anything, you want to put your property in the best light. A lot of times, showing ground level photos from the outside of a listing is not the most attractive angle to view the outside of your house at.
Well, I would also assume that you're going to be able to get a much better idea of the actual neighborhood, the placement of the property in that neighborhood relative to the other homes, all these things that you can't pick up from ground level photography.
Yeah, you can really hone in and cater your marketing to homes that aren't just fantastic homes, but have selling features like super nice decks, nice outdoor space, yards, gardens, even solar panels that, if they're owned, are a big attraction in today's market. And then, as you spoke about the neighborhood and the geographic setting of the property, you can really showcase how the property fits into the neighborhood, as well as showcase any playgrounds, parks, walking trails, sidewalks, any other area amenities, or if you're in an HOA amenities that you can really showcase in the best light.
Well, that's true, because an HOA development may have common area cookout pools, tennis courts, even walking trails.
Yeah, and I'm seeing these photos be used not just in selling homes, but also in renting, whether it's seasonal rentals on Airbnb, and they really want to showcase what the home has to offer on the outside, and also in your everyday rentals around the Central Mass area.
Now, I assume also if you have a talented drone pilot, they can really recreate that feeling of driving down the street and through the neighborhood right up into the driveway.
Yeah, I use my drone pilot's video capabilities for doing exactly that, as well as really creating very intricate and appealing videos of a property that really showcase the outside outside. Then they'll usually take over on the ground and video the inside and put it all together, and it comes out looking very nice.
So anybody that is going to seek you out or One Worcester Homes, part of that process will be having this drone footage taken for their listing?
Can't speak for all agents in the office, but I do know that a good majority of us, especially in today's market, have been utilizing the use of drones and aerial photography.
All right. Well, that is fantastic. I'm sure he lets you behind the controls for a little bit.
I didn't break any laws this time out, Joe.
That's fantastic. All right, Gary. Thanks for stopping by Handling Change.
All right. Thanks very much, Joe. Thanks for having us as always.
And thank you for joining us for Handling Change from the Cantiani Insurance Studios. Join us each week at 7:30 as we give you the tools to handle the changes in your life. And visit us at handlingchange.info. You can find Gary and all the fantastic realtors at One Worcester Homes at Facebook at One Worcester Homes or email oneworcesterhomes@gmail.com. You can call Gary directly at 413-427-5506. For Gary, I'm Joe Mangiacotti.
This is the Joe Mangiacotti Show. We are the show you want to know. It's time to talk to Joe.
All right, folks, welcome back here. We're going to change those bumpers for this hour. 508-871-7000, 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Lines open and available. The text line is also working at 617-297-8388. This is Politically Speaking with Senator Mike Moore, and he's on the line taking your calls. If you'd like to chat with the senator, this is your chance to do so, and that doesn't come up a lot with a lot of senators. I'm not sure. Do you know of any other senator that does a monthly radio show like yourself?
Not that I know of.
Yeah.
I do know, I will say this, that there are several, my Senator Chandler and I, about 2 weeks ago, we did our first virtual town hall, which went pretty well. We had a few glitches with some audio, but we got another session coming up this coming week, so we're trying to get outreach that way. I know some other senators are doing that also.
Mm-hmm. Will that be posted on Politically Speaking Facebook page too, so people can find it?
That's a very good idea.
Yeah.
We have a new communications person in my office,
Joe.
So yes.
Yeah.
So
I chatted with Joe this week, and we did talk about he's going to make sure that some content goes to the Politically Speaking site as well as, of course, the Senator Mike Moore page as well, which is on Facebook at spell out Senator Mike Moore, not S-E-N, but S-E-N-O-T-O-R, Mike Moore on Facebook. And, by the way, I was in, I think we shared a seat in the same TV set. I did all about the Valley.
Oh,
Yeah. So I got there, and Harry Berkowitz told me you had been there recently. And that was something. Was Thursday night conflict with you guys when you were in session?
Yeah, we have formal session. So that's one of those things that we could have an issue that we're there for an hour, or we could be there for 6 hours. So there's a lot of times on Thursday we never know. There's a lot of times on Thursdays that we try not to make any commitments that night because we just don't know whether we'll be able to get this or not.
Yeah, I think I'm back there on the 14th. I went down for my first time there a week ago Thursday, and we never really got on politics, Senator. We just kind of talked about radio and in general stuff, but a great setup they have. This is Northbridge TV, folks, so it's I think it's at nbtv.org or something, but go to the Facebook page. It's Northbridge, but a very nice studio, well set up, good setup there. Yeah. So that's great. But anyway,
So Joe,
yeah,
just give everyone an idea. Right now, between money that's coming from FEMA reimbursement, the CARES Act, and money that was not spent in Mass Health, we right now, Massachusetts, related to COVID, spending initiatives have spent $1.88 billion, in different initiatives trying to provide coverage for people.
1.88 billion with a B.
Yes, billion with a B.
Yikes! And what is the current Commonwealth budget? 40 billion, 41 billion,
like 41 or 42 billion dollars. Now this is something that we've recently had. We've recently had and we got another update coming this week. we had every year in December, we have a consensus budget revenue hearing where we have non-government groups come in and they give their budgetary estimate on what they think our expenses and revenues are going to be. So we had another one about 2 weeks ago, based on now a revised one based on what's going on. And for this year, they're predicting, which is a big change, they're predicting that we may be facing a $500 million deficit this year, for this fiscal year, which ends June 30th. And next year, it could be anywhere from $4.4 to $6 billion revenue shortfall.
Well, I think, don't we have all states, almost all states are really dealing with, I mean, this is a black swan event. It's thrown us for a loop, right? Nobody has planned for this. You couldn't budget for this. Even those states that might have been healthy and had a nice, fat rainy day fund, I think that was gone relatively quickly. And this has kind of become, I think, an issue with some states, right, who are now turning to the federal government and saying, we need a lot of billions of dollars. Well, we need this money, and then of course they might not have been in great fiscal shape before COVID-19 hit, and the federal government saying, well, we're not going to bail you out because you weren't fiscally sound to begin with. But Massachusetts, were we not fiscally sound?
No,
or were we?
We were. We but there's a little politics going on up there with the Senate president in Washington.
Yeah.
Massachusetts, we actually had one of the healthier rainy day funds. We were at $3.2 billion. So we actually had one of the higher rainy day funds in the country, and we've had a budget surplus that we've been working with. So a lot of what you've heard coming from Mr. O'Connell is more of a political. He's using this more as a avenue to get at initiatives that he doesn't think states should be funding. So it's a little deceiving what he's talking about. I will say this: a lot of states have had problems putting money into their rainy day fund. They don't have the degree that we have. When I first got elected in 2009, that's when the Great Recession hit, and revenues dropped roughly about 28%, and we had a rainy day fund a little over $2.2 billion, and that wasn't enough to sustain that. The federal government at that point, the Obama administration, came forward with the ERA funding, and that was the American Recovery Act. So they came forward and they gave. I think we got like it was either close to $3 billion we got, but it was all targeted relief. Money had to go to education, had to go to service. It went to those shovel-ready projects to get people back to work.
And this is some serious cash. I mean, $2-3 billion. That's nothing to sneeze at. I mean, that's a nice rainy day fund, but it's amazing how quickly you can go with a little hiccup.
Yeah, and and since then, what they did is when they saw that states that had the rainy day funds, that how quickly it went, the bond rating companies wanted states to have roughly about 10% of what their budget was. So because they saw that previously states didn't have enough in there. So that's when they were looking at states' bond rating companies, the bond ratings. They were looking and saying, okay, where do they fall within there? Well, Massachusetts, we were getting close to that. As we were saying, we had over a $40 billion budget. We were getting close to having that $4 billion. Now, having seen that, as we see, if we get a $4.4 to $6 billion deficit, this is not due to any spending mismanagement. This is, as you're saying, a black swan event.
Yeah.
So there's going to be if there was a need back then, there's a need now for some federal assistance. And it shouldn't be portrayed that states weren't, because every state is going to be going through this. It wasn't states that were mismanaging this spending. These are just things that a state that can't deal with $4.4 to $6 billion budget deficit. It's just unrealistic to expect that.
Right.
And you think about it, this is what the federal government's there for.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be there for the states.
Yeah.
If there's no states, there's no federal government.
Right.
So, and a lot of this money that say like what we're finding is because of the prohibition right now, or the hospitals not providing the elective surgeries.
That's a huge hit to the income of the hospital. I mean, if they allowed that back, Senator, wouldn't that alleviate a lot of the financial stress the hospitals are having?
Well, for the hospitals, but what it's done for Mass Health, it's like we just transferred over last week. The governor, and this is all in those pre-negotiations that I'm talking about from the governor, Senate President, Speaker.
Mm-hmm.
They just transferred over from Mass Health account money to allow additional aid going to the nursing homes. Another $188 million that was saved from Mass Health expenditures that would be spent on elective surgeries, elective type procedures. So between that, FEMA, and other funding sources.
Can I pause for a second? Mass Health pays for elective surgeries? I would have thought that elective surgeries isn't something the taxpayers would pay for.
Yeah, well, there's some elective procedures, and I don't know what that's definitely what.
Well, although do they put things like, say, gastro bypass under elective, because that is elective, but yet the balance sheet, if you do gastro, and say you do gastro and you're 40 years old or even 50 years old, the amount of money that you'll save in medication and treating diabetes and obesity over the next 10 or 15 years far outweighs the cost of the surgery, right? So,
well, that's what I'm saying. So I don't know what technically when they say elective,
right? It could be elective, but
necessary.
Yeah, necessary for the balance sheet, because I know the insurance companies are very happy to pay for that surgery. It's going to save them a fortune in the future, right? So that's right. Oh, actually, Senator, I didn't realize we had a phone call waiting.
Okay.
Go to the phones. All right, so we're on with Senator Mike Moore. This is Politically Speaking, 508-871-7000. Let's go to Jim in Worcester, who's been waiting. Thank you, Jim. You're on with Senator Mike Moore.
Mr. Moore, good morning, both of you gentlemen.
Thank you.
Two issues I'd like to talk about. With Mitch McConnell saying that, first of all, who's going to be paying for all this? And they're going to be going down the line and taking a lot of benefits away. And like Mitch McConnell, people, and I'm not against the service, but like Alabama, they have 13 military bases. Georgia has 5. Texas has over 200 military bases down here. And these military bases get federal money day in and day out. They're not laying off soldiers. They support in and around like Fort Hood and Texas. Fort Bragg's got 45,000 troops. They get federal money constantly pouring into their communities. Now, who's going to pay for it? It's just an idea, Mr. Moore. Right now, oil is the cheapest around. It's $13 a barrel. And I would like to see, as a citizen, instead of 3 years down the road, laying off teachers, going after Social Security, go up to $33, $34 a barrel, and have Russia and Saudi Arabia and all these oil companies produce as much oil as you can. Keep the price down to around $1.80, $1.90 a gallon of gasoline. And when you put this $20 or $30 barrel, just for 1 year, take all that money and give it to the communities who have suffered. Southern states and northern states. Instead of taxing or taking away stuff, use what we have right now, or it won't affect the Americans right now because oil is so cheap, and use that to bail out this virus. It's just a thought.
Interesting, Jim. Thank you very much for that. Senator?
Yeah, I don't know about challenging other countries that I'm out right now. I think they're in the same situation we are with their economies right now. They're not being able to sustain any sort of, I guess, I don't know if you want to call it a tariff right now, but at some point, Jim brings us a good point. We're going to have to pay of this money back. How are we going to do it?
Yeah. Now, Jim, clarify what.
Just actually, one quick thing though. Jim brought up a very good point. Senator O'Connell is talking about this, which primarily targets the blue states. Yet, if you look at, and this has come out, traditionally the blue states that he's targeting pay more in taxes than they receive back from the federal government. And if you look at the state of Kentucky, he receives more federal aid than they actually contribute. So at the same time, he's attacking these other states, claiming this, yet the state that he's representing receives more federal assistance than it contributes to the federal budget.
Right. Texas is one state. They receive more federal money than they send back to Washington, D.C. Not only because they have so many military bases, but I don't understand why they built, where JFK, the one who started the space program, they built the Johnson Space Center in Houston. They get all the federal programs. Atlanta.
Well, they did that because Lyndon Baines Johnson was from Texas. I mean, that's...
I understand that, but, you know, all these major programs, the Food and Drug Administration is located in Atlanta, Georgia. They employ 6,000 federal workers. That money goes right to these. Now, like in South Carolina, they have a couple military bases. Now they turn around and they get BMW. Volkswagen goes to Kentucky. They give them huge tax breaks to build these plants. Why? Because they get so much federal money to begin with, they can afford it. Why the hell did they ever close Fort Devens in Massachusetts? And they were going to close the submarine base in New Bristol, Connecticut, I think, until Joe Lieberman, who was a Democrat, got down on his knees and went to the Republican side just so they wouldn't close the military bases. These military bases have to be divided throughout the states. Put some in Detroit, some in Pennsylvania, where, you know, that would help these states out getting federal money. No, they build these military bases, and they got $70 billion from Trump to assist it. They had a $25 million school project for the military base. Trump was going to take it away to build part of the wall, and Mitch McConnell complained, oh, you can't take our military funding for a school. I would like to have $25 million for the city of Worcester to build a school.
Well, the thing about that is, Jim, is a lot of that, of course, isn't in Senator Moore's purview because he's state senator opposed to several, but it's hard to start building bases in new locations, right, Senator Moore? I mean, bases are pretty much, they are where they are, but we're running against the clock. Let me get Tom from Shrewsbury in real quick so at least you get your voice in with the senator real quick.
Yeah, hey, no more money for schools. That's ridiculous. This free schools should stop. Everybody, welfare rich, got to pay a tuition. That's because we're paying 60% of our Worcester budget just for schools, which is stupid. We should not be doing that. Also, what is this big disparity on the barrel of gasoline? You used to pay $110 a barrel, and it's down to what? $25?
Well, that's because there's a huge glut. The fact that we stopped driving and
but the price ain't going down.
Well, it has gone. Actually, it dropped. It dropped to
paying $2 a gallon when the gallon should be 99 cents a gallon. Who's making all the money? Somebody's making a lot of money. When you drop from $110 a barrel to like $20, $25 a barrel, don't it make sense? 80% of that cost of gasoline should have dropped at the pumps.
Yeah, well, it seems that way. But Senator Moore, do you want to address that? Because I mean, there's reasons for it, but you want to field that?
Well, they said the companies still have costs that they have to maintain for their infrastructure costs.
Yeah.
Granted, it's going down, and actually.
And the other part of that, by the way, Senator, is that don't forget that these refineries are antiquated by today's standards. And we haven't really built any new refineries. So maintaining these refineries are very expensive and all of that. But the point is, yeah, it should go down to 99 cents. I've seen the drop. I've seen gas at $1.80 for regular, which is crazy to see right now. I don't think we're ever going to see 99 cents right now because look, it always drops a lot slower than it does rise, right?
That's it. But that's what I was talking when I said infrastructure. That's what I was referring to. But just to look one thing on this: the 60% that you're seeing for education. Are you saying that we should provide K-12 schools?
He's already offline, Senator. But that's a good thing we to pick up. And actually, we're out of time for this edition. This is something we could pick up and maybe address on the Facebook page. But definitely bring it back. Maybe you pump it next week for a couple of minutes, and we'll talk about it. But that wraps up for Politically Speaking for this month. Senator, thank you so much. Stay safe and healthy.
And likely, hopefully this will be over and I can come back there next month.
Yeah, we'd love to see you back in studio. It would be great. We got the window open. It's nice and clean. We got a big bottle of disinfected, and don't worry about it. We'll wipe you down.
You don't want me to drink it for you?
Yeah, no. Well, I have no problem with drinking alcohol. Just the right kind. Put a squirt bottle on a bottle of Crown Royal, and you're all set to go. All right. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
Take care. All right, folks, I'll wrap it up. I'll see you tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock. Reverend Peter Preble for Faith in America. Stay safe and healthy.
What can I say about the most popular tea on the internet? And what do customers say about Life Change Tea at GetTheTea.com? A lot. But by federal law, we at GetTheTea.com cannot make claims to how this product can enhance your health. We cannot even post our testimonies without being in compliance. So how do we get past the hump? Try our products at GetTheTea.com and see for yourself. You can send us a testimony, but we just can't post it. Bummer. Our products are GMO-free and organic. We pride ourselves in being the best we can be, and we urge you to take charge of your health. We're 11 years strong, and many of our customers have shared their successes with friends and family. Protect your colon. Log on to GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com.